She's just written a new cookbook called I Love You, Recipes from the Heart.
Since I've always cooked, and people don't really know that side of me, but I am a big nurturer, and my boys...
Do you know who holds the record for the most Playboy magazine covers? The answer is Pamela Anderson, a global icon who once made the world go wild in a red swimsuit on Baywatch. But don't let that image fool you. Behind the spotlight and that smoldering beauty lies a life marked by deep scars, a childhood marred by abuse, a sex tape scandal that shocked the world, and a series of marriages plagued by violence, betrayal, and a crumbling reputation. What many thought was just a 90s sex symbol stunned the world by stepping into the light as a political and social activist, someone unafraid to confront Vladimir Putin or defend Julian Assange. This video invites you to look beyond the glamour, to uncover the truth behind a star once defined by scandal, and to witness an extraordinary journey of rebirth that might just make you see your own life through a more just and compassionate lens. Pamela Denise Anderson was born on July 1, 1967, in Ladysmith, British Columbia, Canada, right on the country's 100th National Day. As the first baby born in her town on that historic date, she was quickly dubbed the Centennial Baby by the local press, as if fate had already decided hers would be no ordinary life. Raised in a modest working-class family, her father a furnace repairman, her mother a waitress, Pamela grew up with a shortage of both material comfort and emotional security. Her heritage was a diverse mix of Finnish, German, Irish, and English roots. Her great-grandfather, Juho Hitiainen, had emigrated from the Grand Duchy of Finland to Canada and changed the family name to Anderson to start anew. But behind the cheerful birth photo printed in the paper was a childhood marked by quiet suffering. From an early age, Pamela endured emotional and physical traumas no child should ever face. In 2014, she publicly revealed painful memories from her past. A female caretaker subjected her to prolonged mistreatment between the ages of 6 and 10. At 12, she experienced a violent encounter with an adult male, and at 14, she was the victim of an attack involving multiple peers. These harrowing events left deep psychological scars, leading her to withdraw and live in a state of confusion and fear. During her teenage years, she struggled with severe emotional turmoil and at times felt that life itself had become too heavy to carry. It was only later, after becoming a public figure, that she found the strength to speak about her past, not to seek sympathy, but to highlight her inner resilience. Despite the emotional toll, Pamela remained an energetic student at Highland Secondary School in Vancouver. She trained in gymnastics and acrobatics and actively took part in school sports. At 16, she began working as a waitress to help support her family and develop a sense of independence. But no one could have predicted that, just a few years later, a fleeting moment at a football stadium, when she appeared on the Jumbotron wearing a Labatt's beer t-shirt, would become the turning point of her life, the moment that set her on a path to the spotlight, fame, and more than a fair share of storms ahead. A fateful turning point occurred in 1989 when Pamela Anderson attended a BC Lions football game. She wore a Labatt's beer t-shirt to get a free ticket, something that seemed entirely ordinary. But when the stadium camera panned to her and her image appeared on the Jumbotron, the crowd erupted in cheers. Her radiant face, striking figure, and effortless charm led the audience to believe she was a celebrity. The reaction was so overwhelming that the organizers invited her onto the field, and overnight the entire city of Vancouver knew Pamela Anderson's name. Shortly after, Labatt's Beer contacted her and signed her for the Blue Zone Girl campaign. She became a national face, appearing on billboards, television, and in major Canadian magazines. From an unknown girl, Pamela skyrocketed into an advertising phenomenon. Interestingly, a Playboy staffer spotted one of her ads at a gas station in Los Angeles and decided to send her an official invitation. At first, Pamela declined. She was too shy. But after encouragement from her mother and persuasion from Hugh Hefner himself, she agreed to a cover shoot. In October 1989, Pamela graced the Playboy cover for the first time and would go on to appear a record-breaking 14 times, an unmatched feat in the magazine's history. In 1990, Pamela Anderson made a bold choice to leave her native Canada and move to Los Angeles, the heart of the entertainment industry, with the ambition to rewrite her destiny. Leaving behind a childhood of deep emotional wounds, she entered Hollywood without acting training, without industry connections, and with nothing but the burning desire to take control of her life. Her first role was Lisa, the tool-time girl on the sitcom Home Improvement. Though it was a minor, mostly non-speaking role, Anderson saw it as her first real set, where she quietly learned to stand before a camera, observed co-stars like Tim Allen, and honed her presence episode by episode. And she knew she was in the right place. Home Improvement wasn't just any show. It was one of the most watched sitcoms of the 90s, ranking in the top 3 shows in the US for multiple seasons. Being part of such a hit series was not just a rare opportunity, but her first test of professionalism and adaptability as a complete newcomer from Canada. This phase wasn't marked by dazzling fame, but by quiet determination. Refusing to be blinded by fleeting attention, Pamela chose discipline as her foundation, preserving her image, learning the craft in silence, and preparing meticulously for a breakthrough, one that would come faster and more explosively than anyone could have imagined. Another turning point came in 1992 when Pamela Anderson was cast as C.J. Parker in the television series Baywatch. The role of the lifeguard in the red swimsuit went far beyond entertainment. It became a global pop culture icon, and Pamela became the face that defined the 1990s. Baywatch quickly turned into an unprecedented television phenomenon, broadcast in over 140 countries, drawing more than 1.1 billion viewers weekly, and recognized as the most watched TV series in the world at the time. Pamela's appeal extended far beyond the screen. In an industry where fame is often fleeting and replaceable after a single season, she became indispensable. Her impact was so significant that international distributors enforced what was called the Pamela Clause, a contractual demand that they would only purchase Baywatch episodes featuring her. With the role of C.J. Parker, Pamela became the highest-paid television actress in the world, not just due to her looks, but because of the irreplaceable commercial power she brought to the series. In her memoir Love, Pamela, and various interviews, she revealed that the work environment on set was incredibly relaxed, so much so that she often brought her pet dog and felt like she was getting paid to enjoy the beach, a place she had loved since childhood. After giving birth to her first son, Brandon, she returned to filming just 1 month later, continuing to perform in the iconic red swimsuit, a feat she proudly viewed as a personal achievement. Pamela also shared that she initially didn't know about the existence of stunt doubles, and thus performed most of the action scenes herself. Another aspect she opened up about was the off-camera pressure, especially from family members who reacted negatively to her intimate scenes. She recalled a particularly intense moment involving a kissing scene with co-star David Chokachi, an incident that led to her dressing room being destroyed backstage. CJ wasn't just a role, it was an image replicated, printed on thousands of posters, featured in every marketing campaign, and etched into the collective memory of global television. For Pamela Anderson, it was the moment she didn't just become famous, she became immortalized in pop culture. Immediately after Baywatch, Pamela continued to shape her image with the action comedy series VIP, which ran for 5 seasons. What few know is that she not only starred in the show, but also co-created it, marking a transition from entertainment icon to a visionary producer. The series was a savvy move, allowing Pamela to portray a strong, sexy, yet self-possessed woman, a character that both parodied her own fame and elevated her beyond the old mold. Her role as Tasha in VIP shifted her persona from sexy lifeguard to action heroine, showcasing her self-awareness and ability to shatter stereotypes. In 2005, she starred in the sitcom Stacked, playing a former model working in a bookstore, alongside Christopher Lloyd. The show was a witty self-parody of Pamela's post-Baywatch image, where she was unafraid to poke fun at her past glory in search of new narratives. Though it didn't last many seasons, Stacked was seen as one of her most clever efforts to dismantle preconceived notions. Earlier, in 2003, she collaborated with Marvel legend Stan Lee on the animated project Stripperella, voicing a sexy yet powerful female superhero. It was one of the earliest animated series to portray a mature, independent female hero, unapologetic about her allure, years ahead of today's wave of female superheroes. On the big screen, Pamela made her mark with Barb Wire, 1996, a film adaptation of the Dark Horse comic, where she played a warrior in a post-apocalyptic world. Although it was met with critical indifference upon release, the film later gained cult status in underground film circles, and Pamela was praised for her physical and emotional commitment at a time when both her career and personal life were in turmoil. 2 decades later, Pamela stunned critics with her Broadway debut as Roxy Hart in the musical Chicago, 2022. Despite having no formal theatrical training, she delivered a performance described as instinctive, magnetic, and unexpectedly convincing. Many critics called it a complete artistic transformation and one of the most impressive Broadway debuts ever by a celebrity without a background in musical theater. The role not only earned her a Playbill Award, but also marked a powerful moment of artistic rebirth in the eyes of both the public and the industry. In 2024, Pamela continued to shatter preconceptions by starring in The Last Showgirl, a film by Gia Coppola selected for 3 major festivals: Toronto, San Sebastian, and Zurich. Her role was widely interpreted as a reflection of her own journey, a woman once celebrated for her looks now fighting to affirm her inner worth. The film earned her the prestigious Golden Eye Award, an emotional and heartfelt recognition from the critical community. And 2025 promises to be another memorable chapter. Pamela is set to appear alongside Liam Neeson in Paramount's Naked Gun, take part in Rosebush Pruning by Kareem Inouye with Riley Keough and Ella Fanning, and star in Place to Be by Cornel Mundrucho alongside Ellen Burstyn and Taika Waititi. After decades under the spotlight and in the eye of scandal, she now steps into the world of serious cinema, with the stature of a recognized artist and nothing left to prove. Beyond the screen, Pamela Anderson has made her mark in the literary world, telling her life story with raw emotion and unflinching honesty. In 2023, her memoir, Love, Pamela was released and quickly created a stir, climbing to #1, 2 on the New York Times bestseller list, just behind Prince Harry's Spare. The book didn't just attract attention because of her fame, but because of its courage. For the first time, she opened up fully about a childhood full of trauma, intense relationships, the struggle with fame, and how she learned to forgive others and herself. Critics called it a brutal journey of self-discovery, unpolished but deeply powerful. Prior to that, Anderson had published 2 novels, Star and Starstruck, inspired by the celebrity world she had lived through. Though they didn't set sales records, both books clearly reflected her effort to experiment with fiction, recreating a Hollywood stripped of glamour, seen through the eyes of an insider. Also in 2023, Pamela made a surprising foray into the culinary world with her cookbook, I Love You, Recipes from the Heart. Featuring over 80 vegan recipes, the book blends food, family memories, and the philosophy of a woman who learned to heal through simple things. Lauded by both readers and critics as a love letter in the form of food, it was yet another testament to Pamela Anderson's storytelling versatility and emotional depth. A woman once labeled a sex symbol, now fully embraced as a genuine author. Away from the spotlight, Pamela Anderson has quietly built a second career, one that is neither flashy nor profit-driven, but profoundly meaningful: activism. For years, she has been a prominent face of PETA's campaigns, consistently speaking out for animal rights, against the fur industry and poultry slaughter, even when it meant challenging major brands. In 2004, she surprised many by writing a $20,000 check to help gymnast Mohini Bardwaj compete in the Olympic trials. The quiet gesture ensured that a talented athlete didn't have to let go of her dream. Pamela has also never shied away from stepping into the political arena. She once wrote directly to Russian President Vladimir Putin, urging him to block a shipment of whale meat, and was later invited to the Kremlin. Putin even extended an invitation for her to attend his inauguration, a testament to her rare influence beyond the arts. In another battle, she fiercely supported WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, visiting him numerous times at the Ecuadorian embassy in London and publicly urging the Australian government to protect him. No one expected a sex symbol to become such a fierce and principled voice on the front lines of human rights and political discourse. None of these were isolated acts. They were part of a long-term mission Pamela has pursued through the Pamela Anderson Foundation, an organization she founded herself, focused on environmental protection, human rights, and education. In an entertainment world that often fosters selfishness, Pamela chose to step out of her comfort zone, using her voice and fame to create real impact. And for many, that is her most admirable pinnacle of success. Beyond her roles as an actress, author, and activist, Pamela Anderson has quietly expanded her personal imprint into lifestyle creativity. In 2013, she participated in the New York Marathon to promote healthy living and raise funds for charity, while also committing herself to projects rooted in sustainability. She once gained attention for her involvement in designing eco-friendly tiny homes, a reflection of her minimalist philosophy and deep connection to nature. The media also took notice of her unique interior design style at her home in Ladysmith, British Columbia. Her bedroom, with its sloped pine ceiling, crystal chandelier, and delicately patterned bedding, was praised by design critics as a perfect example of modern rustic farmhouse aesthetics. Though she doesn't own a branded bedding line, Pamela's approach to decorating and her careful choice of materials in her living space have strongly influenced modern interior design trends, where elegance and individuality coexist. This stands as a clear example of how Pamela is not just an entertainment icon, but a woman who has turned her sense of style into cultural influence. Behind the dazzling spotlight of Baywatch, where Pamela Anderson became a global icon in that red swimsuit, her personal life opened an entirely different chapter. Wild, emotional, and at times, completely out of control. At the height of her fame, she entered what many called the craziest relationship of the 90s, with Mötley Crüe's legendary drummer, Tommy Lee. The story began on New Year's Eve, 1994 at Sanctuary, a nightclub in Los Angeles where Pamela was a shareholder. Amid the chaos of booze and lights, a highly intoxicated Tommy Lee received a glass of Goldschlager sent by Pamela. He rushed over, barged into her table, and, completely unprompted, licked her face from chin to temple. Strangely, Pamela wasn't offended. Instead, she laughed and gave him her number. Just weeks later, as Pamela was about to fly to Cancun, Mexico for a photo shoot, Tommy called and blurted out, "You're leaving without me?" Then he hung up. No one could have predicted that a few days later, Tommy Lee would show up at the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun, determined to marry the woman he'd just met. At a local nightclub called La Boom, he took off a pinky ring, slipped it onto Pamela's finger, and proposed on the dance floor. She said yes, hugged me, and stuck her tongue down my throat, Lee wrote in his memoir, The Dirt. And on February 19th, 1995, just 96 hours after their first date, they got married in a hasty ceremony on a Cancun beach. Pamela wore a white bikini, Tommy wore shorts, and instead of wedding rings, they tattooed each other's names on their ring fingers. No movie script could have written this ending, but it was real. Pamela's friends were horrified. Her close friend Melanie, who had witnessed their first meeting, warned her, "Don't get involved with him, that guy's crazy." But Pamela didn't listen. Later, in her memoir Love, Pamela, she admitted, "Maybe I got swept up in something like a hurricane, and by the time I realized it, there was no way out." "It was love, written in the sand, not in the stars," a journalist once observed. And it was true. Beautiful, wild, impulsive, but utterly irresistible. But just months after their whirlwind marriage made headlines, a scandal shook Hollywood and changed Pamela Anderson's life forever. In late 1995, a 54-minute private home video, 8 minutes of which captured intimate moments between Pamela and Tommy Lee, was stolen from their Malibu home. The culprit was Rand Gauthier, an electrician who had been fired from their renovation project and held a personal grudge over unpaid wages. In a carefully planned revenge act, Gauthier disguised himself, bypassed the security system, and stole the garage safe containing the video, jewelry, firearms, and personal items. What he didn't expect: the tape would become the first internet leak in Hollywood history. There was no YouTube, no Google, no Facebook, just dial-up internet and VHS tapes. But their video spread at an unimaginable speed. Gauthier and an adult film producer copied the tape, created a website, and began selling it, with massive success. Thousands of orders were placed daily. Physical bootlegs flooded the market. Internet Entertainment Group even streamed the video on Club Love, turning a couple's private moment into a global commodity. Pamela and Tommy filed a $10 million lawsuit against Penthouse, Gauthier, and others. But in 1997, the court dismissed the case, stating that the footage was no longer private property. Exhausted by legal battles, the couple eventually agreed to license the tape in order to stop the litigation. But that decision only caused the video to spread even further. It wasn't until 2002 that they finally won a settlement of $1.48 million, roughly equivalent to the tape's profits. But Pamela never saw it as a victory. "I never received a cent from that tape," she said in an interview. "I was pregnant with Dylan at the time, and the pressure made it impossible for me to keep going back to court. I couldn't let those creepy lawyers keep asking about my body and my private life." To the media, it was the first video to ever break the internet. But to Pamela, it was a nightmare, a betrayal, an exploitation of her dignity she could never forget. When Hulu released the Pam and Tommy miniseries in 2022 without asking for her consent or input, Pamela voiced her outrage. "No one asked me, and no one understands how deeply that affected me. As a mother, as a woman." In February 1998, the storm reached its peak. Tommy Lee was arrested after Pamela called the police, reporting that he had assaulted her while she was holding their infant son. Lee was sentenced to 6 months in jail. Though they attempted reconciliation later, Pamela ultimately said, "I'll never speak to Tommy again until he is sober and clear-minded." Despite the deep wounds left by the abuse and their divorce in 1998, the relationship between Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee was never a clean break. After his release from jail, Tommy surprised the world by appearing with Pamela at the World Music Awards, where they shared a public kiss on stage, hinting that the door had never fully closed. The couple even walked the MTV Video Music Awards red carpet together in 1999, just a year after Lee's sentencing, and began discussing the possibility of remarrying. Anderson told Entertainment Weekly at the time, "I picture Tommy and me, old, toothless, sitting on a bench somewhere covered in tattoos." Meanwhile, in the dirt, Lee reflected, "I don't understand why Pamela keeps accusing me. Maybe she's scared and thinks I'm some crazy, violent monster. Maybe she thinks she's doing the right thing for the kids." Still, the old love couldn't withstand reality. When Tommy began dating Mady Garcia, Prince's ex-wife, and Pamela grew closer to Kid Rock, who would later become her husband, Any hope of reconciliation seemed to vanish. Yet they never entirely let go of each other. Lee made a cameo on Pamela's 2005 reality show, Pam, Girl on the Loose, where he confessed on camera, "You've always been there for me, and your spirit and kindness inspire me. Like I've said 500,000 times, and in that damn tape, I love you, baby." In 2008, Lee told Rolling Stone, "We only tried 800 times. 801, here we go." And Pamela, in a 2015 interview with People, still admitted, "There was Tommy, and then there was nobody else. He was the love of my life." In her memoir, Love, Pamela, she wrote honestly, "My relationship with Tommy may be the only time I ever truly loved." From one impulsive New Year's Eve to decades of heartbreak, reunions, and emotional chaos, the Pamela-Tommy love story remains one of the most iconic and tragic romances in Hollywood. Not just for what they went through together, but for the echoes that still ripple through their lives and the lives of the two sons who grew up in the storm of their fame. After the turbulent years with Tommy Lee, Pamela Anderson went on to experience a series of volatile relationships, each new love a gamble with fate. One of the lasting consequences of her marriage to Tommy was contracting hepatitis C from sharing a tattoo needle. The illness silently wore down Pamela's body and spirit for 16 years. In the early 2000s, she was engaged to wild rock singer Kid Rock, but her declining health forced her to postpone the wedding and focus on treatment. It wasn't until 2015 that Pamela was fully cured thanks to modern therapies, a victory not only of medicine, but of sheer willpower. She later married Kid Rock in August 2006 aboard a yacht off Saint-Tropez. However, the marriage lasted only a few months, ending bitterly amid accusations of infidelity and violence. Pamela once said, "I realized I was trying to hold on to something that couldn't be saved." Soon after, she reunited with Rick Salomon, best known for the infamous sex tape with Paris Hilton. They married quickly in 2007, then divorced. But that wasn't the end. Years later, they remarried in another unexpected turn. Pamela herself described the relationship as an emotional addiction loop, where she was hurt but couldn't pull away. Eventually, they divorced again, for good. In 2020, Pamela stunned the media by announcing her engagement to veteran producer Jon Peters, a man who had loved her since the early days of her career. But less than 12 days later, she confirmed that they had never legally married. Peters later claimed he was emotionally and financially manipulated, while Pamela remained silent, only writing on her blog, "I need honesty, not an illusion of love." Just months later, Pamela again made headlines when she married her bodyguard Dan Hayhurst, who had been working at her Vancouver Island estate during the COVID-19 lockdown. They held a simple backyard wedding, promising peace and quiet. But less than a year and a half later, Pamela filed for divorce, admitting, "I thought it was protection, but really I was just locking myself in." The most controversial of her later relationships was with French soccer player Adil Rami, 18 years her junior. Their relationship began in 2017 and lasted until 2019. During that time, Anderson lived with Rami in Marseille, France. But it ended with Pamela accusing him of deceit and leading a double life, maintaining a simultaneous relationship with the mother of his children. She publicly shared evidence of his betrayal and called him the most toxic person I've ever met. On December 24, 2020, Anderson married Dan Hayhurst, her bodyguard. On January 21, 2022, she announced that she had filed for divorce and separated from Hayhurst. It wasn't just romance that brought chaos to Pamela's private life. A deranged fan named Christine Roth once broke into her Malibu mansion, snuck into her bed, and slept there for hours before being discovered on a security camera. The intruder was arrested, but the incident shook Pamela so deeply that she hired a full-time personal bodyguard. In 1996, she was also sued for $5 million in damages for pulling out of the film Miami Hustle just before production was set to begin. However, Pamela had never signed a binding legal contract, and the lawsuit was eventually dismissed. From failed marriages and chronic illness to lawsuits and public controversies, Pamela Anderson's personal life has always been a whirlwind. But it's also the place where her inner strength has revealed itself most clearly. A woman who never stopped getting back up, no matter how many times life knocked her down. Pamela Anderson's private life wasn't just defined by high-profile marriages and headline-making romances. It was also a journey of deep connection to family, roots, and an eventual shift toward a quieter, more nature-bound existence. She has 2 sons with Tommy Lee, Brandon Thomas, and Dylan Jagger, who have always been the center of her world, regardless of the storms in her love life. In 2004, Pamela officially became a U.S. citizen, though she retained her Canadian nationality. For her, citizenship wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a responsibility. It meant she could vote, and one day, help provide her parents with a safe and comfortable life in America as they aged. Regarding her homes, Pamela once owned a beachfront mansion in Malibu, California, purchased for $1.8 million in 2001. Though she listed it for as much as $7.75 million in 2013, she ultimately decided to keep it until she officially sold it during the COVID-19 pandemic. Prior to that, she had spent time living in Cassis, a picturesque seaside town in the south of France. But the pandemic prompted her to return to where it all began, her childhood home in Ladysmith, Vancouver Island. As of 2024, she lives there with her beloved dogs, tending to a vegetable farm called Arcady, a place without stage lights or tabloid chaos, where only a simpler, more grounded Pamela Anderson remains, peaceful, close to nature, and more herself than ever. Pamela Anderson is one of the most instantly recognizable pop culture icons of the late 20th century. Her image in the red swimsuit on the beaches of Baywatch didn't just represent a hit television show, it became a global symbol of American beauty and television allure. She holds the record for the most Playboy magazine covers, 14 in total, an unprecedented number. Yet her legacy goes far beyond photographs and roles. As the first person to suffer a serious invasion of privacy in the internet era, she became the face of the fight for personal dignity at a time when there were no laws protecting digital imagery. She was also among the earliest celebrities to merge fame with activism, advocating for animals, the environment, and human rights through the Pamela Anderson Foundation. Her critically acclaimed performance as Roxy Hart on Broadway in 2022 proved her serious artistic capabilities, breaking down decades-old stereotypes. Pamela Anderson is no longer just a visual icon. She has become a symbol of endurance, transformation, and self-definition in an industry that often discards women after 30. Her legacy stands as a powerful testament to the strength of resilience in modern culture. After the storms of fame and turbulent marriages, Pamela Anderson has stepped away from the Hollywood spotlight to begin a new chapter, one of slow living, authenticity, and commitment to the values she believes in. She now resides in Ladysmith, a peaceful seaside town on Vancouver Island, Canada, where she once grew up and now owns an organic vegetable farm named Arcady. There, she lives with her beloved dogs, maintains a strict vegan lifestyle, and stays off social media as a quiet declaration of personal freedom and spiritual healing after decades under media siege. Anderson is no longer the sex symbol of the 90s. She's an independent, awakened woman, fiercely devoted to the causes she supports. She remains one of the most steadfast voices advocating for Julian Assange. From visiting the WikiLeaks founder at the Ecuadorian embassy in London to publicly writing to the Australian Prime Minister, calling for a hero's welcome home, Pamela is not just a celebrity, she is a principled activist. With her 2 sons, Brandon and Dylan, both of whom have pursued creative careers, Pamela maintains a close yet non-controlling relationship. She once said, "They are the best part of my life, the only men I fully trust." Once a single mother drained by legal battles, she now stands beside her sons as a grounded companion. In 2025, Pamela returns to the big screen not to provoke nostalgia, but to prove that a star once written off can truly reinvent herself. 3 highly anticipated film projects, Naked Gun, opposite Liam Neeson, Rosebush Pruning with Elle Fanning and Riley Keough, and Place to Be, alongside Ellen Burstyn and Taika Waititi, serve as a reminder. She was never a one-dimensional icon. Pamela Anderson has always been and continues to be living proof of the power of self-reinvention. The clearest symbol of that transformation came at the Met Gala on May 5, 2025, where she appeared alongside her son Brandon and turned every head on the red carpet. Wearing a sculptural silver gown by Tory Burch and a bold short bob haircut, a dramatic departure from her signature long blonde hair, Anderson redefined herself. The edgy fringe drew comparisons to Miley Cyrus, yet it was unmistakably 2025 Pamela, modern, self-possessed, and unafraid of change. On a night dedicated to aesthetic statements, she didn't need excess accessories to stand out. Her internal transformation was what truly set social media ablaze. Beyond bold hair and fashion choices, Anderson also delivered a clear message of sustainability by re-wearing jewelry from the previous year's Met Gala. She donned a set of 35-carat diamond pieces, including 17.45-carat earrings, fashion-forward ear cuffs, and a dazzling 15.45-carat brooch. The fusion of vintage elegance and modern consciousness, paired with soft makeup accented by blush and luminous highlighter, made her entire appearance both minimalist and compelling, a refined aesthetic manifesto from a woman who's lived, evolved, and no longer needs to prove anything to be admired. From a child raised in deep emotional wounds, Pamela Anderson has endured a series of seemingly insurmountable tragedies: invasion of privacy, betrayal, abuse, and becoming the center of the first major internet scandal. But she didn't collapse. She wrote, fought, stood tall, and reclaimed her voice, not to chase fading fame, but to affirm her own identity. Today, Pamela is no longer the sex symbol boxed in by the media, but a modern-day Marilyn Monroe. Strong, self-directed, and unapologetically uncompromising. She doesn't erase her past. She transforms it into a living, proud legacy. Have you ever seen yourself in that story? Misjudged, wounded, but still refusing to stay down? If this journey resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because we'll continue sharing powerful stories, where tragedy and transformation remind us all to believe in our own strength.